Okay, before I start with today's list of items that we're going to go over, does anyone have any questions from the last session that you wanted to ask before I start? Okay, so feel free to either put something in the chat or you can raise your hand or just stop me at any time. I'm happy to answer questions. So let me start by sharing my screen. Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about setting up a catalog, setting up your store, as well as going over the member search. So let's start by the catalog. So if you remember, we're going to go up to the menu items at the top, and we're going to go to catalog. Now, I always suggest when you're setting up your catalog to start from the bottom to the top. The reason for this is all of this will feed into setting up your online store and your registration fees. So let's start by setting up some installments. To do this, you would click Add. You would give it a name. Now you do have to put initial payment in. The lowest you can go is 1%. So right now, you want to set up for what you want to take at the initial part of the registration. So let's pretend our registration is $100. I'm going to collect 50% at the start, and then I'm going to give them 2 installments. Now, if I'm collecting 50% of the $100 up front, it's the $50 that remain is divided up into the 2 installments. So I'm going to give it a date for those installments to come out on. What's the date today? And I would click Save. Now, because this is going to be your first year in the platform, you do have to set it up from scratch. You will have the option next year to roll that over to the new season. So you don't always have to start everything from scratch, okay? So let's go into discounts. Now this is a family discount. It's for a multiple person. When you do set up the discounts, you do have to remember that people have to register at the same time in order for the discount to automatically get applied. We would click Add. Now we do have the option of setting it up by dollar amount or percentage. I do recommend dollar amount. The reason for this is if you do it by percentage, which you absolutely can if you want to, but the insurance fee or the membership fee does not get discounted. So there's a little bit of a calculation involved when you're doing it by percentage. So again, we would give it a name. And we would pick the child in the family that you want to start the discount on. So let's pretend this is a family of 4, and I'm going to give the 3rd person the discount. And I'm going to give 25% off. Now, it's again, if it's a family of 4, I'm going to add a second rule. You notice that it automatically gets applied to the 4th child. And I'm going to give them 25% off as well. So I would click Add. Now, when you're doing this calculation, again, let's go back to our example of $100 registration fee. Let's pretend our insurance or membership fee is $20. So in this case, what would happen is that you would subtract the $20, then the discount would go on the 80% or the $80 that is remaining. And then the insurance fee gets added back on. Okay. So I'm going to click Save. I do have that documented in the documentation. So when you do go to the documentation, I do have tables that do help that out and helps explain it. Okay. Now, if I'm going to add one by dollar amount, again, I would give it a name. Now I'm going to, for this one, I'm going to have it start on my second child and I'm going to give it $50 off. The third child would get $50 off, or I can give them $100 off. So now my family of 3 would get $150 off. So there's no calculation involved for this one. It's just a straight dollar amount. And I would click save. Is there any questions about discounts or installments before we go on? Okay, so we're going to go back to our catalog menu and we're going to go to our terms and conditions. I would click add. Now, again, this one will get rolled over from season to season. So you can go back in and edit the one that you've used in previous years. You would make sure it's set to active. Give it a name. And you could just type in whatever you want. You can copy and paste, but please note, if you want to copy and paste, you do have to use the Control-C or Control-V. You notice when I'm using my mouse, I'm not able to paste. So I can use the function keys. I can link it to another, if you have your refund policy posted on your own website, you can link it to there, or you can use any words you want. And you would click add. Now, next, we're going to go to waivers. The one thing to remember with waivers is that you can set these up at multiple sections or multiple areas. So Baseball Alberta could have waivers and they can get pushed down to each of the club levels. If you have regional clubs that oversee certain divisions or certain clubs, they can have waivers. They could add those to it as well. And the club level can have their own waivers. You would click add. Again, make sure it's set to active if you want it to be in use. You would give it a name. The same as with the terms and conditions, you can't copy or you can't use the mouse. You have to use copy and or Control-C, Control-V. Now we have them set as you can make it a mandatory waiver or a critical waiver. The difference between those is a mandatory waiver has to be signed, whether it's accepted or declined, but it has to have one of the choices done in order to move forward in the registration. A critical waiver means that it has to be signed in order to be approved on your teams. Okay. Is there any questions about that? No. So if I don't mark it as mandatory or critical, my default options will be I've read and accepted the waiver. And because I didn't make this mandatory, I have a skip waiver option. You can see when I make it mandatory, I no longer have that skip waiver. So I can put my own wording in. And you can see that it shows up now. So now we're going to go to questionnaires. So again, questionnaires do get rolled over from season to season. You can go in and modify anything you need to. I would give it a name. Now I have to add sections. So I'm going to add a player information section. From the right-hand side, I can add a question to this section. So I'm going to add, are you a player? Sorry, these are my questions from default questions from hockey. Player, or I'll just put that in for now. So you can have your different types of answers. You can have long, short answer, long answer. You can have radio buttons, multiple selection, date, time, or number. So I'm going to say, add some choices for them. Now, again, I can make it a required question, so they do have to answer it in order to proceed in the registration. You can see I have an option here for admin only. What this means is if you want to have a question that your registrars enter the answer for only, so again, this does not show up in an online registration. It's only for the registrar's use behind the scenes. You can set up those questions here. If you do want to make it min only, make sure that you're not putting it as required. Okay. Now, one thing to remember about questionnaires is that you can only add one questionnaire per fee. Now, you can add as many questions you want, but when you're setting up your fees, only one questionnaire can be attached to it. So maybe I want to add another section, volunteer information, and I'm going to add some more questions. When I'm finished adding all my questions and all my sections, I'm going to click create. Is there any questions about questionnaires, waivers, or terms and conditions? No. Okay, so we're going to move up to other items now. Now, other items could be anything that you want to have in your store. You can add an image to it by just clicking and adding an image. And maybe you have a jersey deposit, or maybe you have water bottles or something else. You can add a description to it, and you can set a fee for that. Now, when you're adding other items, you cannot make it only available to certain divisions. It's going to be open to all. So maybe you want to add, if it is only for certain divisions, you might want to put the date on for which year it's for, or something like that, just to indicate if you're trying to get only certain divisions to use it. You can make certain divisions mandatory, so it automatically adds it to their cart. Okay. From the side panel, using the blue pencils, you can make it inactive or active. You can change the name, and you can adjust the price and description. Now we're going to go to registration fees. Again, for this year, you do have to set it up from scratch. You will be able to roll over fees from year to year once you have a base. So we're going to create a fee. Now you can select your member type. So if you are going to set it up for coaches so that they sign all the waivers, it's up to you if you have a fee for them. You can set this one up at $0. But at least the coaches, they register for the year, they sign all the necessary waivers, and you collect all the necessary information from them. If I'm going to set it up for a coach or a bench staff, I'm going to use the senior division. Oops. The reason for that is if I'm going to have, say I have a U7 coach, and I select a coach type U7, only 6 years old or under is to register for a coach. So I do want to make sure I'm using senior. I'm going to give it a name, bench staff. Now, if I want to set it up that they're not going to pay any money, I'm going to exclude all membership fees. That way I can set it up at $0. If I do have a questionnaire that I want to ask for the coaches, I can add that. If I have any waivers I want them to sign, I can do that as well. And I'm going to click add. So now that I have at least one set up, I do have the option of going from the side panel, actions, and I can duplicate. So all the information that I've already set up is going to get carried over, and I can just change the necessary items. So I'm going to set this one up for player. Now, if I want to set up available places, this is optional. If I do set that available places up, I now have an option to select show remaining places. So during the registration for the online, it's going to show you how many spots are available left for that division. You can also set it up for a wait list. And you have an option to ask for a position. So for a player, it's going to ask if you're like outfielder, pitcher, etc. For coaches, it's going to ask if you're like a trainer, manager, coach, assistance coach. So you have a senior, that's for senior, for coaches and for players is going to be differentiated by the member type up here. So for coaches, again, you would set it up and they have a member type is going to be for coaches. And for players, you can use senior again, but then that's going to be a player. Does that answer your question? So I'm going to set it up. I'm setting it up for one because I'm going to ask for, I'm going to show you how to do a wait list. So we will have categories set up as well. So you can have like U15, AA, AAA, whatever your categories are. You do have a suggested name that you can click on and it will automatically populate, or you can click and type in here your names. Now, because this is a player, I'm not going to exclude the membership fee. So this is your insurance fees or your association fee. I'm going to set it up for $500. Now, because I'm in the training site right now, I don't have a membership fee set up. But if I did, let's pretend the insurance fee is $50. When you're setting up a catalog online, so I'm setting up my registration fees in my catalog right now. The one thing I'm going to point out is what I'm typing in the box is the price the parents are going to pay. Normally, this would show up and show you a membership fee, so it would calculate it out and you would be able to see what is your association or your club gets to keep from that fee. Okay. The reason I'm pointing that out is we can do a manual registration, which I'm going to be doing later on tonight. And you can adjust the fee. When you're doing a manual registration, and if I change the price, what I type in the box, you have to add the membership fee back on. So it's a little bit different, and I just want to make sure that that's clear. When I'm setting up the fee here, it's what the parents pay, whatever's in the box here. So let's set up an early bird and a late fee. Now, the one thing to remember about these is, again, whatever's in the box, the parents pay. So you're not putting just the discounted amount. So if I'm going to give $50 off for an early bird fee, I'm not putting $50 in here because that's what the parents would pay. I'm going to put $450. I would pick a date for it to go until and a time. So after this date and time, it's automatically going to switch to my regular fee. Same for late fee. I'm going to put in the amount I want the parents to pay, not the added amount. So I'm going to put 550 here. I'm going to have a date for it to start on and a time. So I'm going to add my questionnaire, any waivers. And if I have an activity period is if you want to have spring, summer, or fall, winter kind of periods, you can set that up. So by default, if you just leave it, it's going to be for the regular season. But maybe you have a winter season, like an indoor or something that you want to set up a registration for. We would set up a category for registration periods, and then you could select that. Now, this is optional again. We've set up the installments earlier, but I don't have to add it to every fee. Or I can change the installments for certain divisions, but I can only attach one installment option to a fee. And I'm going to click add. So you can see from the side panel, we're going to have two tabs. We have a fee and a catalog. So using the blue pencils, you can make any adjustments needed. And from the catalog, again, you can use the blue pencils. Maybe I don't want that questionnaire for that one. I can remove it, or I can add it. Yes, so if they're registering by and using a credit card, they have to pay at least the initial payment of that credit card payment at the time of registration. If you have select check or offline payments like e-transfers or anything else, then that option, they can pay for it later. Also for the installments, if needed, they can go into their My Account, and if they had to change their credit card for future installments, they can do that. Is there any other questions, or do you have any questions about other items or registration fees? Yeah. Okay, so now that we've set up our catalog, we can set up our online store. To find the online store, you go to Manage and go to Online Registration. Click Create. Make sure that you are in the correct season. You would select your language. Now, by default, if your club is only set up for English, English is the only one that's going to be available. But if you had it set up for French and English, you can select both or one of them. I'm going to give this a name. And I do have to put an email address in. Now you can see that underneath here, I have it checked off for going to receive an email with every registration. You can go back in here and edit that at any time. So for my own association, I know that I'm going to get a lot of registrations when I first open for the first month or 2 months. So I usually turn that off because I don't need to get an email every 5 minutes. Later in the season, when registration slows down, I go back in here and I edit and I click that so that I start getting those emails so I don't miss anyone. I would select a date for it to start and a time and an end date and a time. Now again, you can go back in and edit these times at any and dates at any time or any period. So the same with when we set up the fees, you can, if you have set up a different activity period, so it's off from your regular series or season, you can set it and you would select it there. So next is a confirmation message. So at the end of your registration, there's going to be a pop-up window. It'll have the email address that the registration goes to. It will say that here's your invoice number, but you can also put in another message. So maybe I know for my own association, I put in the e-transfer email address just as a reminder that, you know, send the money to this address. But you can put anything in here. The same as when we were doing the catalog. The mouse does not work for this section, so it's Control-C and Control-V. Click Next. So I'm going to add my registration fees in. Now, you can set up more than one store. So for my association, I actually create 2 different stores. I have one for bench staff only, and then I have one just for players. But you can have them both together. The reason I do this is that when I'm running a report, I'm selecting only this registration store. So I'm only going to get my bench staff on that report. But again, that is up to you. You can combine them or you can have them separate. So I'm just going to add this one in. But if I had more than one fee set up, I'd add more. By opening the side panel, I'm going to be able to see the information. And you can set up a display order. So if I did have more than one registration fee in here, and I wanted to change the order that they're going to be listed in, I could do that there. So I'm going to add my other items in. From the side panel, again, I do have that display order that I can put that in. And this is where I would set it as a mandatory. So by doing that, it's automatically going to add it to the cart for any registrations. Okay. I would click Next. So I'm going to add my discount in. Now I can only select one of them. So I'm going to add my discount for my dollar. I'm going to add my terms and conditions. Now, if I had a credit card merchant account set up, I would select it from here. And then I would select any other methods of payments that I'm going to click Next. The last step is just a review. So if I wanted to make any edits, I could do that. Make any changes, click save. When I'm finished, I'm going to create my store. Is there any questions about that before we go on? So you're going to notice that when I first create my store, it's in draft mode. So I'm going to click in there so I go into my store. So again, when you're managing your store, this is, you can click into your store and edit at any time. We do have it broken down into a few different tabs. So you will see your online registration. If needed, you can always make something inactive or sold out. You're going to be able to see any registrations that come in and transactions that are attached to those. And we do have a display at there for the total amount sold. So for these buttons at the top right, you're able to share a store. So I created this store in zone 8, but maybe I want zone 7 to be able to register to my store. Even though that they're on their profile, they only have zone 8 as their primary. Maybe they're not shared, or maybe they're they don't have a share or a primary to zone 8, only zone 7. I'm going to pick zone 7. And I'm going to confirm. And now anyone that has a member in zone 7 is able to register to the store as well. One thing to remember about that is if you're going to share your store, you have to do it before any registrations are there. So once you open your store up, if I have one registration sold, I'm not able to share it any longer. I would have to create a new store. That's just the terminology Spordle is used. If you, what do you guys call it, your online store? I can call it to whatever you guys call it. That's just the term that Spordle has been using. Do you guys just call it online registration? Okay. So the next one over is you can move it to active. You can even close your registration from here, or you can always move it back to draft as well. This one is to open your store. So if I click on that, it's going to take me right to my store. And the last one is you can copy the URL. Okay. So this is what your online registration is going to look like. You're going to be able to see any of the other items that you have, see a list of your registrations. If I click the little down arrow, it's going to open it up to give me more information. So I'm going to be able to see the early bird late fee. And you can see that this one is a required item for this fee. At the bottom, I'm going to be able to see my discounts and my terms and conditions. Okay. Is there any questions about that before we start to register somebody? So before I go into registering somebody, I'm going to quickly go to a member's profile. And I'm going to add a credit. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to show you how if a credit is added to a member's profile before they do an online registration, it's automatically going to get added to it. Okay. So we're going to go over this a little bit more when we get to the members profile. So, but I'm just quickly going to add one. So I'm going to go. Sorry, my computer's slow tonight. So I'm just going to put a $50 credit on. Okay, so this is the URL for your parents to start registering. They're going to click register now. Now, if you remember from last week, we created the online my account. I added somebody to my profile. So because I'm logged in to my account, it's automatically going to pull anyone that I have linked to my account. So I can click to register now. I'm going to pick from the list. By default, it's only going to show the ones that are available for that age group. If I wanted to only register for another item, I would click skip registration. And that would take me straight to the online registration or the other items that I have available. But I'm going to pick the U15. You can see that it's asking me for the questions that I've set up. You can see it's automatically added one to my cart. Click next. I'm going to sign the waivers. And I can either proceed to checkout or I'm going to register another person. I'm going to add a player. Now, because there was no Paul tester in that had a profile, it's allowing me to create a profile for that member. So I'm going to select from the mandatory fields. By default, it will say Canadian and birth country Canada, but you can change that. Now, because I'm logged into my account, it's pulling my email in already. I'm going to select my Indigenous status, my ethnicity. Now you can, at the bottom, say prefer not to say or other. So I do have to put a phone number in and a phone type, as well as an address. Now it's pulling from my address that I've already put into my account. I'm going to select my move-in year and I click create. Oops. Okay, it does give me a warning that I'm going to create a new profile. I'm going to register. So I can either remove if I need to, or edit the information. And I click next. Now, Jane, I'm going to pay in full. Maybe Paul, I'm going to pick my installments. Okay. And you can see that was the message that I put in to my online store. Is there any questions about that? No? Okay. So I'm going to go into my account. You can see Paul Tester got added to my account. I'm going to be able to view the registry. Oh, I have to, let me see. Sorry, I'm in the testing site sometimes, but it is letting me know that I'm missing information that I'm going to be able to add to that. But if you can see in the to-dos, it's letting me know that I have a payment to make. Okay. Is there any questions about that before we look at members' profiles? Okay, so let's go to members. To find your member search is under manage and members. Now you can see that I actually already searched for a member. I left that area and I came back, and my history of that search is already there. So I can just physically go out there and clear it, or I can hit the clear button. So let's go at the top. We have member types. A member type only gets added for that season. So it gets reset every single year. So if you're done an online registration, a manual registration, if you've registered for a clinic or you've been put on a team, you're going to get a member type added to your profile. So you are able to search for this. So I do like to use this quite a bit. I look for players that has a member type. So I know that my search is only going to pull people that have registrations in my association for that year. Now I can click the box underneath that says no member type. So this is going to set give me a list of any members that are in my association that have no member type. So maybe I need to get a list of, I want to get a list of 12 to 13-year-olds that have not registered for this year. And I'm going to get a list of them in order to, maybe I want to contact them. So, and find out if they're going to register, because I have some spots available. Okay. You can do, so again, you do have the volunteer, the player, official, coach, or bench staff. Dreams Come True is a special program. Okay. You can select, do filters for anyone that is missing required fields. So when I set up that profile for Paul, and I selected his Indigenous status and his ethnicity, some profiles are going to be missing those. So when we add all of your old membership in, if there's any profiles that have not updated that information, they're going to be listed as required fields missing. Okay, so you can be able to get a list of any of that. If anyone has an unconfirmed address, like if that Paul tester, the registrar would have to check to find out if that is a valid address. Maybe there's documentation that is required for that. Maybe I need my proof of residency in order to confirm the address. That is available. And you can have the missing documents. You can search by first name, last name, or partials. So I'm going to do JT, and I'm going to find Jane Tester. I can also put in a percentage sign. So maybe I know part of her last name, but not all of it. I'm going to put percentage sign, and that's going to help me find anyone that just has an ER in it. Okay. Now, the buttons at the top, the radio buttons, depending on which club level you're at. So I'm in zone 8 right now. I'm going to, by default, it's always going to be searching for the top one, members of my own association or own club. If I need to find members outside of my club, so I'm looking for somebody in zone 1, I'm going to select the bottom one. Now I do have to put in first name, last name, or partials, or their participant ID number, and I can click search. And that is going to search all of Alberta baseball. Okay, so you're going to get a list of them. Okay, in that case, I'm able to transfer people. So maybe they need to be transferred from zone 7 to zone 8. I'm going to be able to find that members. Okay. I can also search by email address. I can search by status. So each member does get a status as well as a type. So they are two different things. A status of a profile is, so we do have draft mode. So when I create an online registration, so when I registered Paul Tester for my online store, if I started that registration, but it did not complete it, that it would be a draft profile. So that parent, maybe they started the registration, they had to go make dinner, they come back, they start that registration, it's going to put their first name, last name, date of birth in again. It's going to find that profile that they've started so that they don't have to put all of the information back in, and they can start where they left off. Now you can merge, because you may end up having multiple draft profiles, so you can merge them together. Or you can complete the registration for them manually, and that creates the profile. We do have an unconfirmed status. So this is when there's missing information on a profile, or it's a new member, and again, they need to have their address confirmed. You have the confirmed, you have an inactive profile. So if there is no movement on a profile for a year and a half, so there's no registrations, there's no, they have not taken a clinic, they've not been rostered to a team, they turn to be inactive. Now, this is just for purposes of finding members that, you know, you may want to contact or something. It's information only. As soon as there's movement on the profile, it reverts back to their previous status, or you can reinstate them. Now we do have a blocked member. So you can block a member for multiple reasons. Maybe they are, maybe they owe money from past seasons. You want to put an outstanding balance on them, that turns them into blocked, or maybe they haven't returned their jersey, or for whatever reason, you can block a member. This will stop them from being able to register online, transfer, or be approved on a team. So the message that they will get online, just it says there's an issue, they contact the registrar. It doesn't say that what the reason is. It just says contact the registrar. Okay. You can search for a date range, or you can put in minimum and maximum age. You can also search for by gender identity. And again, you can search by participant ID number, and that eliminates any filters that you've put up the top because it's a targeted for one person search. Is there any questions about searching for a member? So let's add a member. So if you need to create a new profile, you can click Add Member. Put the first name, last name in, and date of birth. Oops. It's going to search all of Baseball Alberta to see if there's any matches. If there is, it's going to give you a list of them, and you can select to see if it's the correct person. If not, you can create the new profile. So you do have to put on all the mandatory fields. Now you can make the member confirmed, or you can make them unconfirmed. So maybe you do have to confirm some information or need to collect some information. So you can make them unconfirmed. I'm going to confirm this member. So this is what a member's profile does look like. So at the top, it will have the participant ID number. It will have their status, their age, their birth date, and you're going to be able to see their primary association. Now, if I'm shared with another association, it's going to have a list of shares. So maybe I'm shared to zone 7. You will have some display boxes. So when there is registrations, you're going to be able to see a list of the amount of transactions for that current year. So again, these ones only go by the current year. You can see that what year you're on by the red column at the top. I'm going to see the basic information, the address. Now, these red boxes that you see on some members' profiles, that is indicating that they are missing information. So I have missing documents. So maybe I need my birth certificate or proof of residency. So the member in my account. So when I go to my account here, if I was that parent, I would have a to-do item here, and I'm missing information. So you can see I'm missing documents here, and I'm going to be able to upload that document that I'm missing. And that is going to add it in here so the registrar can go and double check. So they might want to double check that the proof of residency matches the address that they put in. If I'm not required any documents, I can validate the documents with nothing in there. Okay. So you will see sometimes ones that have unconfirmed addresses. So they will be in there. I'll see if I can find a profile that doesn't have an unconfirmed address, and then we can confirm that. You do have a contact section. So you can add updated contacts yourself, or when I'm in the member's profile, I'm going to add profile, or I can add contacts. So this is more for parents, so they can do as much information in the My Account as possible. We have a lot of self-serve options. So parents are able to go in. I'm going to say I'm the mom. I put my information in. I can even put it as an emergency contact. And I'm going to click add. Now, if I was actually on Jane's profile, that would be updated here. And you're going to be able to see a date stamp on there. So if I end up having 2 moms contacts, I'm going to be able to see the latest one. So I'm able to delete the old ones. Now we do have a family relationship box. This is a manual box. So if a registrar wants to keep track of who their family members are for their players, maybe they want to know that there's a coach that has a profile and they have a son or daughter, they can add that information in here. Again, it's for information purposes only. The linked accounts, you're going to be able to see when a parent has an account and any of the family members that that child is linked to in the My Account. So maybe I'll jump over to Jane. You can see that in Jane's, you can now see that I have the contact that the parent added, that I'm an emergency contact. And you can see that who has that Jane Tester linked to their profile. Okay. So this does help when parents contact you. You're not able to update or change their password if they've forgotten it, but you are able to let them know what email address they've used. You do have a memo section. Again, this is for information only. It is permission based on who can delete memos. So if I wanted to go in and add a note about maybe there's a payment that is going to be coming late, and I want to make a note about that, or they have a friend request, I can add that kind of information in. To delete it, go to actions and remove. So let me, this is Jane, I'm going to oh, I can't do that. Okay, sorry. Okay, so the next tab over is we have registrations. So you're going to be able to see the registrations on a member's profile. From the side panel, you're going to be able to see if there's a questionnaire, what their answers are. If you need to make an adjustment to that, you can. You're going to be able to see what their transactions are and the registration, and you can see any waivers that has been signed. If I needed to cancel the registration, I can do that. I can also confirm the registration. Now, some people use the confirm registration differently. So there is, you can go in and confirm registrations as they come, check everything, see if they have everything. I like to do it for my own association when I add them to a team. So when I run a report for registrations, there is a column that says the status of the registration. I like to filter that. So as soon as I add somebody to a team, I confirm the registration so that I have an easy way of seeing anyone that I haven't added to a team. But there is different ways of that people use that confirm registration, or you can just leave it in pending. It's up to you. You can send resend invoices to parents, or so the difference between an invoice and an invoice with receipt is an invoice is a snapshot of the registration. So if I click on here, I can see the registration. So I just get a snapshot. It doesn't show the payments that I've made. So it just shows that there was a discount. There was a credit that got added on. The receipts with payment are the payments. So when I go into the transactions, let me just make a quick payment on here. When I send that now, I'm going to get an invoice, or it's going to show me, and it's going to show all the receipts as well. Now, if I'm going to cancel a registration, it is a two-step process. So if I've canceled the registration, I still have to cancel any transactions that are attached to that. Okay. So we're going to go over a few different transactions in a few minutes, but I just wanted to point that out. You will have a tab for teams. So any of the history of the teams that they are on will show up here. Any qualifications. So if players need respect in sport, or if their coaches need whatever coach qualifications in it, you're going to find it listed under here. You're going to have a history tab. Now you can click and it will take you right to that section. So you're going to see a list of their transfers. For suspensions, this is permission based. So whether or not you see the suspensions, it's whether or not what permission level you have. Same with appeals, but you will have a status log. So anytime a member's status changed, so you can see that this one has been moved to confirmed, you can see who has done it on the date that it was done. So this is being recorded, and I will send it to Liam. So if you want to review the rest of it, okay. And you will see a list of any waivers. Again, you can filter. So you can filter by the season. So you can, and you can see which waivers were marked as critical. If there's any waivers critical, again, they cannot be approved on a team until they've been signed. Is there any questions about this before we move on? No. So I'm just going to go back to Sue Tester for 1 second. While I'm seeing this, see this little circle with a plus sign? This is called our quick view. It does show up on reports in members and in teams area. So if I wanted to, I could just click the quick view and it's going to have a pop-up window of the member's profile. So it's just an easy way. I can do this for multiple people at a time. I can open all their profiles. They're going to have different tabs for each member up here. But it's an easy way to quickly go through I use this for teams quite a bit. So when I'm looking for qualifications or if I'm looking for certain information, I can quickly go to each profile and see that they have everything. From the right-hand side, I can minimize it and it's going to go into a quick view history. So I can keep adding players or bench staff there and I can always open it. I can click the X to close one tab at a time, or I can close all the tabs and it erases my history. So I'm going to do an online or a manual registration. And it's going to go into the wait list. So to do a manual registration, I go to the member's profile and go to the registration tab. And I click add. I'm going to choose a member type. So I'm going to register her as a player. Now, if I want to register any over or underage players to a division, I select show all packages. By default, it's going to only show them available for that age division. So I'm going to click. You can see that it's on a wait list. So if you remember at the beginning when we did our online registration, I said that when you're creating your catalog, what the parents pay is in here. Again, this is opposite. So I would, if you noticed when I was in the catalog, it had a minus sign. So this is what the parents or the club would keep. This is opposite. So if I had a $50 insurance fee, this would come out to $500, and this is what the parents pay. So during a manual registration, maybe this player started late, so I'm going to defer do prorated. I'm going to let her pay $300. Pick a division or a position. You can see that it automatically put her on the wait list. So to find the wait list, I go to tasks and wait list. You do have to select your division. I'm going to click search. You can see that I did this admin registration. It was not, if it was an online registration, it would show up as online. I'm going to click anywhere on the line so the side panel opens. From actions, I can accept, I can cancel. So I'm going to accept them. Now, because I did a manual registration, that's what comes up. So I'm going to continue the manual registration. If it was an online, so if a parent had done it, that pop-up window would show up in the My Account for that parent. Sorry, my computer's really slow. Because I can either answer the questions during a manual registration, or because I didn't mark this as a mandatory, I can skip it. The parent will be asked in the to-do. So if I skip it under to-dos, there's now going to be a section for answer questions. So I'm going to skip it. I can either skip the waivers and have the parents do it, or I can, if I'm going to add or accept the waivers on behalf of the player, I have to say if I'm verbally collecting the agreement or if I have a physical copy of the waiver. So if I go back to my wait list now, you can see that it's now been converted. So the other status that they have, so the 3 statuses are pending, waiting for client, which would mean that I've accepted them. The parents are waiting to accept that spot or decline their spot now or off the wait list. But now it's converted. So that registration has been converted to an online or a completed registration. Is there any questions about wait lists? So I'm going to go to my transactions tab on the member's profile. So as you saw, when I went to, I added a credit to Jane Tester before the online registration was done. So it automatically got added. This time we have a registration that's already completed. I can still add a credit. So I'm going to add $50 credit. I can make it a date that it expires. So if you don't want a credit being transferred from season to season, you can expire it. So they have to be used by a certain time. I'm not going to put an expiry because I'm going to use it right now. So you can see I have a member credit of $50. Credits should be thought of like gift cards. So just because you have a gift card in your pocket when you go out for dinner, if you don't give it to the waitress, it's not going to be used. Okay. So I still need to apply it to the transaction. To do that, I would click on the line item of the transaction for registration. I'm going to go to actions and I'm going to apply a payment. So the payment type is going to be member credit. I'm going to select the member credit. And I can confirm. So you can see now that, let's refresh this. You can see that this credit has now been used. The balance is now 0. And I have a payment received as a member credit of $50. Okay. Is there any questions about credits before we go on? Now, because this is an offline credit or an offline payment, I can remove that at any time. So maybe I've added that credit by mistake. Because I've done it after the transaction, I've done it manually, I added the payment, I can remove it. For Jane Tester that used that credit during an online registration, I cannot remove that. So I can delete that credit if needed. This goes with any kind of payment that you've applied manually. So if I refresh that, you can see that that credit got added back to that balance and the payment has now been removed. So from here, I can cancel items. I can also exchange an item. So an exchange is maybe they register for U15, but they're going to be, they should have registered for House League, or they're going to be playing U18. So I want to exchange the item. I would select the registration. Now, because I don't have another, I should have added another fee. Let me quickly add a fee, sorry. I'm just going to add a fee to another division so we can exchange it. Sorry about this. Okay. Now, if I'm going to exchange that item, I'm selecting what I'm going to exchange. Select my member type. So it turns into a transact or a manual if I'm going to do this. Again, I'm only going to select, or by default, it's going to let me know which is available for that member. I can change the price if needed. And you can see, if I go to the registration tab, this one has now been canceled. And now she's registered for U18. It automatically, because it was online, the credit was applied or was available, it added the credit automatically for me. Okay. Now, the other options that we do have here is you can see that we have a convert to transactional. This means right now I have it set that the method of payment is e-transfer, but maybe the parent said that they want to pay by credit card. So I can click on here from actions. I can convert to transactional. Now this isn't going to work because I have no merchant account, but I would have been able to select the merchant account for the credit card payment. And then when I go into my account, a pop-up window in the to-dos would say, I have a credit card payment waiting for me. And I would attach my card. Now, if the parent then decides, no, they actually do send me the e-transfer, I can go back to actions, and this would actually be, say, to convert to manual. And I can convert it back and apply the payment. Now, the next options we have down here is we have void invoice. You can see it's grayed out. The reason for that is because there's been a payment made. So once a payment has been made, I can no longer void a transaction. If I want to have get rid of amount due, so maybe they're playing a little bit, maybe this is a partial payment, I'm just gonna put a partial payment on here. But maybe for whatever reason, they've only played part of the season and they're not going to play anymore. I'm not refunding them the money, but I'm not gonna look for that extra $200 for them to pay. But I don't want it to show up as an outstanding balance. I can go to actions and I'm gonna credit invoice. I can either put an internal note or an external note. So this will show up, send a note to the parents. And I can confirm. So you can see now the amount due is gone. Okay. If I needed to refund, I could do that. If it wasn't paid by a credit card, I cannot add or charge it back to a credit card. Okay. When I'm doing a refund, it's always going to give me an option whether or not I want to cancel that. So maybe I'm refunding it for a different purposes, but they're still playing. So I'm not going to cancel that item. Is there any questions about any of that? Okay, so some of the other things that you can do is I go to the invoice. You're going to see on the invoice who it's been paid by. Maybe there's times where you have two parents and the mom is paying part of it and the dad is paying the other half. If I need to change who this is on so that the invoice gets sent to the other parent, I can click edit. I can either select an identity. If the parent doesn't have a profile, I can create one. And now it's going to ask me if I want to link that child there. And it's now the other parent. When they go into their My Account, they're going to get one of those to-dos saying that they have a payment to be made. Is there anything that you guys want me to go back over for any of the registrations or the members' profiles? The last thing we have on our list is registration reports. But if you have any questions about any of this before I go to the report, feel free to ask me. Okay, so I'm going to go to the registration report. So I'm going to go to reports. I'm going to click dashboard. Now for the reports, it does have categories at the top. So I can just scroll down to find my registration report, or I can click registration and it's going to give me a list of all of them that they have. I do want to point out the print registration form. So when you are creating a new profile, there is certain information that you're going to need to collect to get that. So when you saw me create Sioux Tester, I knew the information for the Indigenous status, the ethnicity. I knew the address and everything else. But maybe you want to print this off. I like to keep one handy at my desk so that when I'm creating a new profile, sometimes I get somebody that's not able to use their computer or something, and they want to do the registration over the phone, I can collect all this information and have it ready so that I can get a complete profile. Because there is going to be mandatory each fields, so it won't let you create that profile to do the registration unless you have it all. So this is a good report to keep handy. It's the print registration form. Okay. So I'm going to go to registration report. When you are looking at this report, it is two different views. So you're going to notice that it's a summary. So it's going to show just the counts for each of the divisions. If I'm looking for a report on all the names that I've registered, go to actions and go to detailed report. And we're going to wait for my computer for 1 second. Okay, here we go. Now, if you remember, I did a manual registration and I did an exchange. Because I've done that, I want to make sure my online registration store is blank. The reason I'm saying this is if I select that filter option for online registration store, and I'm going to click search, you're going to see my numbers are different. Okay. So just remember, I'm going to leave that blank. And you can see that Sue Tester now will show up. You can, so you can see Sue Tester is now showing up. You can search by division only. So you can use all these different filters options to narrow your report down. Or you can also do a custom report. So each report does allow you to make a custom report. You can give it a name. If you want to give it a description so that you remember what your custom report was for, you can do that. If I click Save Filters, this is going to save my report and I'm going to be able to use it over and over again. So I can select any of these ones I want. I do like to use this custom report for registrations for amount owing. So maybe I want my first name, participant number, I want their email, and I want amount due. And I might want their division. Or I'm going to go fee type or in division name. And click Save. So you can see from that list, there is a lot of columns available for this report, which is why I do like to use the custom reports a lot of the times for this. So I don't have to export to Excel and then play around with my report. And once it comes up, you're going to see I just have the columns that I have. Okay. If I go back to my reports dashboard, you can see now that I have a custom report in there. Custom reports do have that little symbol before the name. So if you're looking at all reports, you can see that that is a custom report. From the side, I can delete that report at any time. Is there any questions? Or is there anything that you would like me to go back over? Okay, so if you're coming on Wednesday night, we will be going back over some of the members' profile bit, some of the qualification history and some of the other tabs. And we're going to be creating some teams. Okay. Thank you for joining me tonight. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. If not, hopefully we'll see you Wednesday night.